Hi everyone, this is Betula Bukhtir again, and welcome to Cognitive Approaches to Language. So, I want you to imagine this little brain as a thinker and a storyteller at the same time. So, every time we use language, we are not just communicating, we are shaping how we see the world. So, in this session, we're going to explore how the structure of a language, things like tense, word order, or even gender, can actually train our attention and shape our thought patterns. So, by the end of this class, you will see that language is not just a mirror of our thoughts, it's also one of the tools that builds them. Pretty cool, right? All right. So before we jump in with all the fun examples we have today, let's start what today's journey is really about. So today we are actually exploring one of the most interesting things in linguistics: how language and thought interact. In other words, does the way we speak actually shape how we see and understand the world? So throughout this class, we will unpack that question by looking at real examples from different languages, and by the end, you will be able to do three main things. What are these main three things? First of all, you will be able to explain linguistic structures like tense, gender, or evidence markers. Can these you can explain how they can influence cognition. And second thing, you will be able to distinguish between linguistic determinism, the strong idea that language controls the thought, you remember this one, and the linguistic relativity, which is the one more accepted, that language influences thought. All right. So finally, you will be able to recognize three major theories that connect language to the mind: the conceptual metaphor theory, the frame semantics, and the construction grammar. So keep an open mind as we go. You might realize that even small things in your language, like how you describe a time, a color, or these are shaping how you experience reality. So let's do a quick a recap of this one. This is very important. So as we said, one of them is very strict, and it's like it controls the language, controls thought, and the other one, which is accepted, is that language influence thought. So for example, here we have English and Mandarin. You know that English speakers usually mark tense. Like they could say, I went, I go, I will go. But Mandarin speakers, they focus more on the context instead of tense. They could say something like, I go tomorrow. That small difference trains English speakers to think more about time, while Mandarin speakers may think about completion or situation. So, this idea is how language structure shapes cognitive focus, is exactly what we are heading next. Okay? So, every language, is basically is basically a toolbox, and the cool thing is each language fills that toolbox a little differently. So some languages add tools like tense, so speakers are always tracking time. Others rely on word order or gender or something, like, let's say, evidence markers. So we tell you how you know something. Did you see it? Did you hear it? Or you are just assuming that. So here is the fun part: when your language keep asking you to notice something, your brain gets really good at noticing that. It's like mental workout. Okay, so for example, if your language makes you pay attention to time, your mind becomes super aware of time. If it is make you if it makes you mark whether something masculine or feminine, you start unconsciously attach a certain qualities to object. Do you remember the bridge example? That's the one. So some of them describe it as they consider it masculine, so it is stronger and dangerous, and others so it as feminine. Their language say it as feminine, and it was softer, beautiful, and in other like it's way different. So this is the gender aspect, and all of that happens because of what we call cognitive processes. Things like attention, perception, memory, and categorization. All right. So all of that happens because of these three things. Okay. Four things. Sorry. So an away language doesn't help you talk. It trains your it's like it trains your brain to see the word in a particular rhythm. So let's see some examples. Okay. um, let's start with English with Mandarin. So as we said, like the 10th thing, I went, I go. So they focus on time, others focus on the you see in Mandarin they say I go tomorrow, no change in the verb, no tense marker, nothing. So what happens, English speakers grow up paying attention to time. It's like when that happens. Their minds are trained to think, did it happen already? Or it is happening now? Will it happen later? But Mandarin speakers, on the other hand, are more focused on context, whether like something complete or still going or not necessarily when it happens. Like they don't care about the time. They don't pay much attention to that. So both the groups are saying the same word, but their language is highlighting different details in it. And that's the beauty of linguistic relativity. It's not that one group cannot think about time, it's that it's like their language chooses to shine a spot, like the spotlight on somewhere else. And so let's see other examples like Turkish. So, here, you cannot say something like he went. That's not enough for them in their language. So you have to say how you know he went. Did you see him go? Did someone tell you? Did you just guess? So they have, if they say, I'm not, I can't spell the word, but if they say he went, they have two words. Like they can't say he went like they mean they saw it, like they saw it with their own eyes. And there's another word that means he went, but like they heard that, so someone told them. So imagine growing up speaking a language that forces you to mark this every single time you talk. Well, these speakers are aware of evidence. Their language literally trains them to keep track of where their information comes from, almost like a built-in fact checker in their brain. And it is really fascinating because like it shows that grammar is not just about verbs and endings, it's about how we process knowledge. So while English speakers might focus on like something happened, like when it happened, Turkish speakers are like tuned into how they know it happened. All right. So now let's see other examples. So let's move to Arabic, Spanish, and German. Okay. If you have ever studied a language like Spanish, German, or Arabic, you know that everything seems to have a gender, even things that definitely do not need one. All right. So in Spanish, the word table, it is that's the word table. So it's feminine, but in German, the same word. It's a table, but it is masculine. All right. Sorry. And in Arabic it's the same story. So we say something as an Arabic speaker, we can say kitab is a masculine, which means a book. This means a book. It is a masculine. And we can say something like siyara, and it which means a car, it is feminine. So here's the fun part, okay? Speakers actually start describing these objects using traits like that match the grammatical gender. Um, and you remember the study about the bridge? We said that they were saying that this is stronger because it's masculine, and others say it's feminine, so it is beautiful, elegant. So that's they see the same bridge, but they are quietly painting it a different emotional color. So that's why we say linguistic structure guide attention, not by forcing you to think in a certain way, but by gently nudging your focus. So now we will see something else is with the cognitive linguistics. Okay, so here is where the cognitive linguistics comes in. So it's basically the study of how language connects our mental life, how language connects to our mental life. So how the words and structure we use are tied to how we think, feel, or and make sense of the word. Okay, so instead of treating language as just a grammar or vocabulary, cognitive linguistics see it as um, a window into the mind. All right. So every evidence we say reveals a little bit about how our brain organizes experience. So in this section, we will explore three of the most powerful ideas in this field. And I promise it's gonna be like they are completely gonna change how you look at everyday language. Okay, so first we're gonna look at the conceptual metaphor theory, how we use metaphors not just in poetry but in our actual thinking. And then we will dive into the frame semantics, how single words activate whole mental scenes in our minds. And finally, we're gonna study the construction grammar. It is how language patterns themselves carry meaning, not just the words we put in them. All right. So by the end of this class, we will see that language is not just a tool for communication; it's a mirror of how we understand the reality. So let's start with the first one: conceptual metaphor theory. All right. Um, so it was developed by Lakoff and Johnson. They say that we actually understand abstract ideas through the physical experience. Think about that for a second, okay? Our minds take something we can't um, see or touch, like time, love, argument, and connect it to something concrete, something we can feel or visualize. Let's um, let's take, for example, these examples. So the first one, time is money. We say things like spend time, save time, waste time, even like run out of time. Okay? We don't really own the time, but our language treats it like a, a valuable resource, something like you can manage or lose. Okay? Another example, argument is war, all right? We defend our points, we attack ideas, we win or lose an argument. So when you think of debate as war, it shapes your behavior. You argue to defeat the other person, not to understand them, okay? And the last one, love is a journey, okay? So you are probably heard people say, let's say, we are going in different directions, or our relationship hit a dead end. So we are not literally driving anywhere, but we are using the language to like of a travel to make sense of the emotional experience. What really like is interesting here in that these metaphors are not just creative language, they actually shape how we think, how we feel, how we act. So if you see time as money, if you see time as money, you might treat rest as waste. If you see argument as a war, you might focus on winning instead of listening to others. So metaphors are not just in our words, they are built into the way we reason about life. Okay, so next let's look at another powerful theory. Um, it explains how even single words can trigger entire mental scenes, and that's called frame semantics. Okay, so if metaphors show how we think about through language, this next theory, which is the frame semantics, shows how single words can open entire words in our mind. So it was developed by Charles Fillmore, I think. Excuse my English. And the key idea is really interesting. It's like it says every word you use automatically activates a mental frame. Okay, sorry. So, for example, if I say the word buy, you probably imagine a buyer, a seller, money, maybe even a store on online cart. These, like, just because I said one word. So that one word pulls out an entire situation, like a kind of story your brain already knows. Or another word, let's say hospital. So even without me explaining that, your mind immediately pictures patients, doctors, nurses, waiting rooms, maybe emergencies. So that's a frame. And that's why the same word can trigger different reactions in different people. Experience, our experiences color this frame, okay? So the frame semantics remind us that language is never isolated. Every word is a doorway into a network of meanings, experiences, and emotions. Words do not just describe the word, they reconstruct it inside our mind. So, let's move to the third one, which is the construction grammar. And it shows us that meaning is not only in words themselves, but also how we put them together. Okay, so the big idea here is that grammar is not just about rules or structure, it actually means something. Okay, so every pattern in language, every little construction is something we have learned over time as pairing between form and meaning. Think of it like this way. Okay, so when I say um, this example, so she gave him a book. That's a straightforward literal sentence. She transferred an actual object, right? But if I say something like she gave him a headache, suddenly there is no physical object at all. Like this, he the first one was there's she already gave him an actual object, but here there is no physical object at all, and you cannot wrap a headache in wrapping paper, right? Right. So like the same grammatical structure. Um, she gave him eggs, still perfectly working. Why is that? Why do you think? Well, that's because our brain doesn't see grammar as empty, it sees as a pattern that carries its own meaning. Someone causes another person to have something. That's what construction grammar shows us. Grammar is not just like skeleton of language, it's a part of its soul. It is learned, it is meaningful, and it helps us to make sense of the abstract ideas through familiar patterns. So, if you think about it, between metaphors, frames, and constructions, all three theories show one thing. language and thought are deeply connected at every level, from single word to a full sentence. All right. Uh, now we have talked about the conceptual metaphors. Let's see how they are actually shown in our real life, and how we think, argue, or interact. Uh, let's see here. Argument is war. So when you think an argument as a war, what do? You attack ideas, you defend position, you try to win. The goal is not understanding, is a victory. All right. This is something we already said before. Okay. But imagine we change that to the metaphor, like, let's say, what if we saw argument as a dance, let's say? So suddenly the tune shifts. The goal becomes coordination, rhythm, timing, listening. You move together instead of against each other. And that's the magic of conceptual metaphors. They do not just live in language, they live in us. Okay, so the way you frame something, whether it's a conversation, a challenge, a relationship, um, quality shapes how you behave inside it. So metaphors are not just about words; they are about word views. Okay, and once you start noticing them, you will see that every culture, every language, and even every person lives through a slightly different metaphorical lens. Um, Now we have seen language and thought in action. Let's wrap with a big picture reflection of what all of this means, and for how we see, think, and teach. Okay, frame semantic in action. Well, that's remind us that every word brings a mental picture. But here's the thing: those pictures are not universal. Okay, so different culture fill in those frames in completely different ways. Let's say, for example, let's take for example the word home. Okay, for some people, especially in more collective cultures, home might instantly brings up an image of family, warmth, and shared meals, a sense of belonging. Okay, it is comfort and it is people for them. Okay, but in another culture, it could be home might evoke like something very different, like independence, privacy, or maybe let's say freedom. So the same word, same sound, but totally different emotional frame. And that's what makes teaching and translation so tricky, right? So because like if I we are not just moving words from one language to another, we are moving frames, entire mental words. So as a teachers, um, or even as a global communicators, it is worth remembering that the meaning of a word is not locked in a dictionary. It lives in the mind and experiences of the people who use it. All right. Let's see now next construction, grammar, and action. Okay. So remember, construction grammar is all about patterns that bear form and meaning. We don't just learn words; we learn chunks of language that already carry meaning built into them. So, for example, let's take this phrase: "Let me give you a hand." Okay, if you took it literally, it sounds kind of creepy, right? Let me give you a hand. So, like someone's about to detach their arm. But because we have heard this phrase in a context so many times, we know it means let me help you. That's construction, grammar, and action. We learn we learn these combinations as a whole, not as a separate pieces. It also shows that context defines meaning, not just grammar rules. The same structures give you something, could mean something physical, give you a book, or abstract, give you a headache, give you a hope, give you a hand. So the takeaway here is grammar is not a set of uh, just formulas. Okay, so it's a flexible, creative, and shaped by the meanings we use most often in real life. And that's what makes, well, teaching and learning so fascinating, because every little phrase carries a history of how people actually think and interact, right? So now we have explored how all these theories come to life in practice, from metaphors to frames, constructions. Let's wrap up with the big picture. What does all of this tell us about language and the mind? Okay, so what did we discover? First, that linguistic structure shaped cognition. The patterns and categories in our languages actually train our attention. They make us notice certain details like tense, gender, evidence without us even realizing that. All right. The second thing, language uh, nudges thoughts. So it doesn't trap us or limit us, but it guides us how we focus, how we describe, and even how we remember the world around us. And finally, we think with metaphors and frames. Every word, every phrase, every little expression carries a word of associations shaped by our culture, our experiences, and the way our minds organize meaning. So, the next time you hear yourself saying something like, I spent time, or I cannot see your point, or I'm running out of ideas, remember, you are not just using language, you are revealing how your mind thinks in motion. Language and thought are not separate, they are partners in the same dance. Thank you for listening, and I hope that this helps you start noticing and the invisible connections between the way we talk and the way we think. Thank you.